The first ever episode of AEW Rampage is in the bag, and it was real good. Here are some spoiler-free thoughts before I get into the nitty-gritty and the spoilers. I thought it was really good. It was only an hour long, and it didn't feel that way. It absolutely flew past, which I think is a massive, massive compliment. The pace of the show was good. It was fast. Nothing dragged. Unlike some of AEW's other programming that's not Dynamite, Dark and Dark Elevation, sometimes that can feel long-winded just because of the nature of the show. This didn't feel like that at all. This was a perfect complement to Dynamite. An hour is the exact right length. It was just really good. I don't think this is going to be indicative of its entire run. Obviously, you've got an incredibly stacked card. You've got 3 championship matches in a row. It's not always going to be like this, but the way they formatted it, again, 3 matches, you got promos for each, for 2 of the matches. So the second match had a 30-second, I think it was like 30-second or a minute long VT, just hyping up that match, giving you the reason why it's existing. The main event had the sit-down interview with the 2 competitors, with Mark Henry doing the central talking. So it had like Mark Henry in a box, and then Britt and Red Velvet on either side. That worked really well. Again, it gave everything meaning, and it just kept the show flowing. The pace was brilliant. The length of it was brilliant. And it didn't feel like an hour at all. The perfect compliment, as I said. The matches were all really good. I would recommend if you're on the fence about watching it, you're like, do I really need to watch this as well as Dynamite? I think you should. Especially this week. All 3 good matches, all with all significant, all meaningful, all have long-term ramifications to some extent or another. Banger. And they did that thing again where they're talking about flipping Chicago next week, the Chicago Rampage next week, which is the big one, the most. The biggest attendance in AEW history. I think the term they used was the most anticipated show, or something like that. Anticipated TV show or something. They had the Darby Allin promo again with Best in the World in it. I wonder what's going to happen. They've put their best foot forward with this. It felt different enough to Dynamite in terms of presentation, different color scheme, different titles, different interstitials, different lower thirds. Well, at least there were slightly different colors. At least it felt different enough to Rampage while still being identifiably AEW, and the match quality was really good, which is the most important thing. Banger, great. If you have the time, go watch it. If you want to watch the matches, go watch them. I think Omega versus Christian Cage, unsurprisingly, is very good. Britt versus Velvet is very good, and Fuego versus Miro is very good. So hey, if you want to watch one of them, if you only have time to watch one of them, I would say Omega versus Christian, but the whole show is very good and definitely worth watching. So there you go. There's some spoiler-free thoughts. Actually, one thing I will say, spoiler 3 before we get there. The 4-man booth. Now, I have a problem with 3-man booths. I always think 3-man booths are a bit much. I'm one of those people who, I just think the third person is kind of superfluous, especially in WWE. For example, with Byron Saxton, and I feel sorry for Byron Saxton because I always use him as the example. Sorry, Byron, mate. I think you're actually a good dude. You seem like a really good dude. But he just always seems a bit superfluous. It seems like his role is sort of lessened to just going, oh. 2-man, I think, is always the way to go. AEW's 3-man booth on Dynamite, it works. I never really think about it being 3-man too much, and that's probably the biggest compliment I can pay it in terms of like it not being in the way, I guess, or noticeable, because in this it was at times. It's only a 4-man booth for the first match. Mark Henry, Chris Jericho, Taz, and Excalibur being the lead guy. Excalibur is the right guy for that job, by the way. And whenever Jim Ross eventually steps down from his role as the lead on Dynamite, it's Excalibur's. You can't convince me otherwise. Excalibur is the right guy. Taz is obviously very good at what he does. Jericho is just loud. It's what he does best. He's the loudest. He is the loudest. And it comes across on commentary just as it does when he's doing promos. And Mark Henry is just starting out on this broadcast in his broadcast career, his post-wrestling broadcast career. And so it doesn't feel entirely natural for him. He felt like the superfluous guy in the four-man booth. But after the first match, he takes a step back. He goes and transitions into a backstage role where he does a backstage interview with the winner from the first match, as well as doing the backstage interview to hype up the main event between Britt and Velvet. And again, he's still working his way into that. He's only just started his broadcast career, so that's totally understandable. I'm not sitting here being like going to overpick what he does, because I think actually he still does his job well, and it's just cool to see Mark Henry and he looks hyped and happy, and it's just great because it's Mark Henry. Again, I want to say that again because it's Mark Henry. But yeah, that's the only negative thing I can really say is about the four-man booth, and even then, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And the three-man booth, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But there you go. Spoiler-free thoughts out of the way. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Omega versus Christian was real good, wasn't it? It was real good. What an opener to have Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage starting your first ever episode of Rampage. Banger. To have Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the Impact World title as the first match for the first episode of AEW Rampage. Yeah, you're doing a good look. It's like a cheat code. You know it's going to be great. And it was very good. Shock. It ends with Christian winning the Impact title. I was interested that they did this match at all, because obviously they're facing each other in the main event of All Out. And if not the main event, they're for the world title. It should be for the main event, but whatever. It's for the world title. So I was interested that they had this match to begin with anyway. But I guess it kind of makes sense. I think the reason why they swerved away from Hangman Omega seemingly the last minute is because of Punk and Daniel coming in. Because dream matches with Kenny Omega for the World Championship just exist now in the ether. They are there to be had. Not that you couldn't have Punk versus Omega, for example, for in a non-title match anyway, but it just makes it a little bit more spicy to have the title in there. So I guess it makes sense. I think that's why they swerved away from Hangman, because I think if you have Hangman in the world title match, he has to win it. And when he does win it, it's going to be an amazing moment. It's going to happen. And you can swerve away and you can carry on this feud between Omega and Hangman, and you can build it and let it simmer for a bit longer, because once that does happen, it's going to be big. And Christian winning here, I feel like makes sense. It keeps his undefeated streak going, coming up to the pay-per-view. I think it also gives Christian something that keeps him feeling like a big deal. Even though I think he's going to eventually lose to Omega at the pay-per-view, it keeps him feeling big. Not that he can't because he's Christian Cage, but it gives him legit. It gives him cred, and then obviously he can go and do as much as he wants to do in Impact. And there's a lot of matches in Impact that you could probably have bangers with as well. All good. Josh Alexander, Christian Cage. Anyone? Little Josh Alexander, Christian Cage. It was good. Finish made sense. It keeps Christian's run going. It makes Omega seem defeatable, even though it wasn't entirely clean. The Bucks threw the chair into the ring for Kenny to cheat. Christian Cage ends up using it to the win. Everything makes sense leading up to the pay-per-view. The interview he gives after with Mark Henry, I found quite funny. Just that one specific line he said about it won't be as easy to win the AEW title All Out. Bruv, just an unnecessary swipe at Impact there, Christian. You're their champ now. You gotta respect it. Okay. We get this VT that I mentioned talking with Fuego and Miro, saying why the match is happening, why it means so much to Fuego, and Miro just nailing his character yet again. Perfect. 30 seconds to a minute long. It was beautiful. Brilliantly done. And it meant that when Fuego did come out, when Fuego del Sol comes out and the crowd are giving him such a large reaction, you understand why. Even if you don't watch Dynamite every week, you don't watch Dark and Dark Elevation, you don't watch Sammy's vlogs, you understand why he's over and why people are loving him right now. And it makes you root for him even more, you know? And then Miro comes out, and Miro is just brilliant. Like, Miro is so good right now. And his role is perfect for him. He's nailing it every time. The horns at the beginning of his theme are just brilliant. It just works so well for him. And this is about as good a 2-minute squash match you're ever going to see. Well, not ever, but you'll see in quite a long time. Miro ends up going over, but not for lack of trying from Fuego. Fuego comes out flying, hits him with, I think, like 3 tornado DDTs in a row. The first one, you're like, okay. Because everyone's expecting a Miro squash to an extent. And the way these two have been booked, it's a Miro squash match. And so he hits him with the first one, and Miro is clearly shaking. You're like, ooh, nice. And the bell hasn't gone yet, so the referee's stopping it. He's saying, no, you can't go for him yet. We've got to ring the bell. And he's trying to get Miro back, and Miro's rocked. He's doing that thing Brock Lesnar does it the best, right? It's when a monster or a giant is rocked and they're down on one knee. But I genuinely think Brock Lesnar's the best at this. When he gets hit by like 17 phenomenal forearms or whatever, and he does that thing where he's on one knee and he just looks rocked, and everyone goes, oh my God, Brock Lesnar's rocked. Miro is doing that, but in the best way. Miro's just really good, isn't he? Anyway, Fuego hits this tornado DDT. Referee saying, no, you can't do it. Fuego hits him with a second one, goes to try and pin. Miro rolls out of the ring. You're like, oh. Third one, he goes for the pin. 1, 2, oh. And now I'm not saying I'm not saying I bought it or the crowd bought it, but they were very behind Fuego, and I was like, ooh. Miro regains himself, hits him with the kick, hits him with the game over. It's done. He finishes it in emphatic fashion, but it was banger. It was exactly what it needed to be. It was exactly perfect. Fuego doesn't win his contract. Miro looks like an absolute beast coming out of it though, and is over even more to people who haven't seen it before. And Fuego looks brilliant in defeat. Despite him losing, he looks brilliant in defeat, to the extent where after the match, Tony Khan comes out with your boy Sammy Guevara. He hands Sammy a contract and a microphone. Sammy walks to the ring and says, Tony thinks that as your best friend, I should be the person to give you this contract. You are. So Fuego del Sol is all elite. Hands him the contract. You get the good feel-good moment anyway. You already had the good feel-good moment with Christian Cage as well, but you have the feel-good moment here. Fuego del Sol. Good lad. He's a good lad, isn't he? He's a good lad, and we'll see what he does. We'll see what he does going forward. Exciting to see. Good lad. And Miro. Oh boy. And in the main event, we get this sit-down interview where Mark Henry's in a square. You get the two people on either side on squares. They're not like face-to-face or anything, but they're sitting down, talking to camera. Mark Henry asks them both a question. Single answer again, something short to hype up the match, but both competitors absolutely nail their reasons, absolutely nail the delivery, nail the promo. Britt Baker hits the DMD. The people, they're loving it. They're loving it. And we get the main event, Britt Baker versus Velvet for Red Velvet for the AEW Women's Championship. And it's really good. It's really good. It's really good. Britt is so over, man. She's so over. And look, she has been before. It's not just because it was in Pittsburgh. It's not just because of that. She has been increasingly over every week, and it's becoming just abundantly clear. She calls herself a star and the crossover and all this other stuff, but she just isn't. She just is. Is after the hardcore match with her name, Thunder Rosa. Thank you very much. Don't know why that went out of my head. After the hardcore match with Thunder Rosa, she's just continuously got more and more over. And this was actually perfectly placed. It was a really good statement to see them put this match on as the main event. And one of the things I wanted AEW to do now they have an extra hour of programming of television, because you can sort of write off to an extent Dark Elevation. You shouldn't, because there's a lot of time there's some really good matches on there. But as like must-watch television, as much watch programming, you tend to look at the television shows more than the YouTube ones. I wanted them to add more women's stuff because I felt like that's a division they can work on a lot more. You know, I think they've got a really good male singles division. They've got a really good tag division. I felt like this was where they could serve to improve somewhat. There's a lot of really talented people in that division, and I feel like let's elevate that slightly, and having an extra hour of television helps that. And putting this on in the main event does that. It gives them a spot. It enabled them to build stories as the post-match segment happened. And if you want someone to seem like a star who wasn't already, if you would just watch this show and you just saw this match and you just saw the reception Britt got, she's a star. She's a legit star. The DMD thing, I don't even know what that means. In my head, I'm like, oh, it's Doctor of Dental Medicine, but that would be DDM. I haven't got the foggiest. I have no clue what it means. And yet, bang, she is over AF. Red Velvet comes out, she gets the opposite reaction, and that's the way they work. Red Velvet ends up working as the heel. She's aiming for Britt's injured wrist thing. Wrist thing? I'm not the doctor, she is. Wrist thing. She's working it. She's trying to gain advantage by doing stuff like that. And Britt she's not working face, but she's allowed to be done over by a heel, I guess, which gives her that elevation in that sense, I guess. Because she's still busting out cheating moves, do you know what I mean? Rebels on the side, she's still cheating. She ends up getting sent to the back. And Red Velvet comes close to winning. She almost has the lockjaw in, but Britt reverses it very slickly. Tries to put it in, but it's her strong hand with the wrist thing that's injured. She tries to put it in a strong hand, can't quite do it. She flicks it over. She hits it with her weak hand, gets the tap, gets the win, gets the dub in Britsburg. Obviously had to happen. And this is where my one criticism of the show, apart from the four-man booth, happens. I felt like this post-match segment was a bit too convoluted, a bit overcooked. Statlander comes out. So Britt is attacking Red Velvet. She's gunning for her. It's been clear over the last couple of weeks that they're starting to put Statlander in that position to be the next person to take on Britt correctly. Statlander's amazing. And Britt is about to do the curve stomp on the championship with Red Velvet, who's helpless. Statlander comes out, stops her. She was watching the match anyway at ringside. She comes out, she stops her. She's stopping Britt. She's fighting Britt. Britt's in trouble here. She's rebel. She's got a crotch all the time. She ain't helping. Out comes an unknown wrestler. And for a brief moment, the briefest of moments, I did think it was one of the Iconics. I did. I felt like it might be Cassie Lee, I guess you'd be called now. But it wasn't. It was Jamie Hayter, which, to be fair, I'm just as happy with. Could be because I'm a UK. Could be because I'm British, but I think Jamie Hayter's really good. And in her original run with AEW before the Rona happened, she was really good. She had momentum, and it sucked that it sort of disappeared for her in that moment. But I think she's really good. And she comes out to save Britt. Goes off air with her raising Britt's hand. An excellent addition to the division. It's good to see more storytelling in that division, getting more time. Very happy about that. Britt's a star. Red Velvet just keeps getting better, by the way. Huge compliment should be for Red Velvet. For someone who's only been doing it such a short amount of time, she just keeps getting better. And that moonsault she hit, that's the makings of a very good moonsault. I'll say that. I really like Red Velvet. And this felt like one of those matches where someone gets the championship match just before they're ready, but they will go on to do big things. And that's what I'm hyped about with Red Velvet. She's very good, but Britt is a legit star. It's happening. And that was AEW Rampage. Very, very, very good show. An excellent first episode. The next episode, it's happening in Chicago. They keep saying best in the world. I wonder what's going to happen. I'm intrigued to see how they let that play out. If they don't have MJF coming out to cut off personality, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, don't get me wrong, that sets up MJF Punk, which I don't know if they want to do yet, but I don't know what they're doing. I guess they could be, because the MJF Jericho thing could be over by then. So maybe that's MJF's next thing. I don't know. We'll talk about it then. What did you think of Rampage? Let me know in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? How did you feel about everything? What do you think about that four-man booth? That's something I'm interested to know people's opinions on. It's kind of like a dogmatic thing for me, I guess, at this point. So I could be wrong. How did you feel about it? Like the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. All that good stuff. The aim is to do one a day. Will it happen? Who knows? The only way you can know is to subscribe, find out, watch it, and see what's tomorrow's video. I don't know. That's the joy of the process. Who bloody knows? Who bloody knows? Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. And yeah, Britt's a star, man. Britt's a star.